Welcome to the realm of heroes and monsters. Story time with your host, AP Fuchs. Stories of intrigue, stories of horror, stories of superheroics, stories of monsters. Get ready, the thrill ride begins. Welcome to the realm of heroes and monsters story time with me, your host, scruffy looking AP Fuchs, because I don't know what's going on with the hair, but just deal with it. It's Saturday for me, so just blah. Anyway, this episode is the second to last episode of season 3 of story time. So that means next week is the grand finale, and next week I'm going to reveal what the idea is for season 4. So we'll go and talk about that at that time. But until then, we have today. And today we have a special story. We have a special story about a childhood hero. He was played by Kevin Costner in my childhood, and most recently by Russell Crowe. And you know who he is. The one, the only, Robin Hood. That's right. We have a Robin Hood story coming up in story time. But first, we have to do story before the story. And the thing it kind of complements is that Robin was obviously a liberator of the poor, right? His whole thing was people who are under control, removing that control from them so that those people could be free. And as we get into story before the story, there's an element of control that comes into play when it comes to us and stories. What is that? Well, tune in and here it comes. All right, welcome to Story Before the Story. So, as part of our whole thing where stories are part of our lives all the time, and in the intro, I mentioned an element of control. So, let's talk about that. So, here's what it is, okay? So, as of this moment in time, right, or any moment in time, we have a limited amount of known knowledge in the world, right? We have unearthed documents, we have libraries, we have the internet, etc., etc. And then every so often, there's a headline. And a headline has to do with an ancient text that was found, whether that text was found on ancient parchment, or whether it was found inscribed in stone, or even if it was in some form of language that we don't know. It's a dead language at this point in time. But everybody's ears and eyes perk up at this possibility of a story that has been lost to history up until the time it's been discovered. And this happens all over the world all the time. Archaeologists are digging up all over the place, all the time, looking up. I mean, because the world, when you think about it, all throughout history, like civilization upon civilization, they basically build one upon the other in a physical sense. Like one gets destroyed, the other one just builds on top. One gets destroyed, the other one builds on top, and so on and so on. So they keep going down and down and down. And they start finding these things. So then every so often, yes, a block of text or a block of images shows up that never been seen before ever, and everybody is captivated. Everybody wants to know what is to say, what's the story there, and we can't help ourselves. It's this deep ingrained intrigue that we have into the unknown, and especially now a story, because we're going to be presented with a tale of maybe what happened back then, or a circumstance, or the name of a person, or some form of accomplishment, or even some form of defeat, whatever it might be. It's his story. It could be even someone's thoughts. Who knows what it is? But the point is, we all get captivated by this, and we can't help ourselves. We have to know what these things say. And I just find it extraordinarily intriguing that, in reality, we really shouldn't really care. It's nice to find out that information, and that's from an information point of view. We know that's great, but instead we attach emotion to it. We attach a drive to it. We attach a sense of need to it, instead of just simply unearthing it like a old clay jar or something like that and just looking at it as such. We have to know what it says. We have to know the tale. We have to know if that fits our current narrative of history. And that's what I'm talking about, being out of control, in the sense that it's in ourselves. So unless you're completely passive about these kind of things, which for most people is actually fairly rare, it's always intriguing, it's always exciting, and we're always rooting on the people who are experts in their fields, who study these things, these new discoveries, these new written items. And we hope, and pray that these folks, decipher it and decode it and translate it or whatever. And then later on, there's another headline that says, here's what it says. And we all find out, and it could be something extra awesome and exciting and cool, or it could be something super mundane. but it could be interesting in its own way in a historical context. So the point is, we are drawn to unknown stories that get unearthed. And again, this kind of feeds into all the stuff we talked about this season in terms of the unknown stories, the secret stories. We touched on all those, and this is another way of that. But in this case, this secret story, quote unquote, has a chance to be revealed if we're able to decipher and or translate. So that is really cool, and it's really exciting, and it's a point of interest that we all fall into because everybody is simply dying for a story. Speaking of dying for a story, let's go to Sherwood Forest together and have an adventure with good old Robin Hood. Thief. Robin sat perched high up in the tree. Even after all these years, he still had a thing for heights and its ability to let you see everything. So many years, so many trees. Wagon 1906 was not far down the well-worn path through Sherwood Forest. Robin had killed countless men in his lifetime, but for some reason kept track of the number of wagons that were the source of his bounty. They ran through Sherwood once a week, sometimes more. With a slight grin, he thought back to better days when he had his men by his side. Now it was just him and Tuck left, and the old friar was no longer good in a fight. He was no longer good for anything other than saying prayers and, on a good day, ministering to Robin. The friar had denounced his order over a decade ago, approximately 20 years after the sheriff of Nottingham's reign and terror had come to a bloody end. The new threat was Rome, and how the church in Nottingham was no longer a place for God, but for greedy men who consolidated power in his name. That was the wagon. More money headed for the cathedral. The priests claimed it was to adorn it as a place worthy of God of the universe, but the amount of money coming in didn't reveal itself in new stonework or paintings or even sacred elements for Mass. Instead, a covert operation at night to investigate the cathedral showed Robin the money was spent on the priests' quarters and women. None of it aided the poor except for an annual sharing of food. It was a new holy war now, one man against the greatest religious institution in the world. The God of Rome, well, the one they worshipped, wasn't the same one as the one Robin kept in his heart. "Lord, be with me," he whispered, and produced his bow. He armed it from his quiver and readied his shot. The wagon drew closer. One driver, 4 others on the horseback, 2 on either side. There was likely 2 or more within the wagon guarding the treasure. Carefully aiming his shot, his old eyes not what they used to be, but his hands and arms filled with decades of skill, Robin let the first arrow fly. It clipped the driver's helmet across the nosepiece, the force of the arrow knocking him from his position. Robin took hold of the rope already in place and swung down. The moment his feet touched the floor, he withdrew his sword from its sheath and slashed at the first man on horseback, running the blade across his belly. It didn't penetrate the armor, but was enough to knock him off the saddle. Robin sliced through the horse's legs, using the attack as a distraction while the first soldier got to his feet. Robin charged him and went for the bare skin beneath the helmet's metal bow, penetrating the blade into the man's brain. Withdrawing his sword, he spun to meet the driver who had gotten to his feet. Robin blocked his bladed attack and did the same to him, cutting into his skull and ending him. The remaining 3 men dismounted and charged him. Robin slammed his blade into the ground as if staking his claim on the wagon. Bow back in hand, he shot 2 of the soldiers in the face, leaving just 1 more to tangle with. The man came in, his sword bearing down. Robin dodged, then pulled his sword from the ground. The blades clashed, and in a flurry of movement, Robin used the aggressive moment to get behind the soldier. He slashed at the back of the man's knees, then brought the handle up to knock the man's helmet off. He drove his sword down into the man's head like a spear, lodging it so deep he had to use his foot for leverage to pull it out. 2 more soldiers appeared after a creak of metal. The interior guards, Robin thought. He blocked another swing of a sword, then kicked the man in the face. He met the other soldier's blade, shoved him away, then faced the other one again. Robin dropped to his knees, his sword on the ground beside him. He pulled the bow, loaded it, and shot an arrow up the man's nose, deep into his head. Back on his feet, he ran around the rear of the wagon and ensured no other soldier was inside, then popped up on the opposite side of the wagon as his opponent and sent 3 arrows his way. One in the throat, another in the face, one in the chest. Quickly, Robin closed the wagon's rear door, grabbed his sword, and hopped in the driver's seat. With a quick snap of the reins, he sped the wagon further down the trail and away from the fallen men and the other horses. Heart beating so hard in his chest, it grew tight. Shortness of breath came on. A little farther, he thought. He veered the horse off the path and pulled on the reins. The wagon came to a halt. As fast as he could, he rounded the back of the wagon and opened its doors, the chest within no doubt weighing 100 pounds. No matter. His whole body was used to the strain. He had to stop for a moment and regather his breath before hoisting out the chest and lugging it to the drop spot further into the forest, well away from the wagon. Robin covered it with branches thick with leaves and would come back for it later after nightfall. As he left the site, the excitement of the moment caught up with him, and his old joints gave out and he fell to his knees. Just a little further, Lord, he thought. Please, Lord, just a little further. He was not far from camp. His chest tightened, and it suddenly felt like a horse had him underfoot. His limbs tingled, and his head spun. No, he said, that couldn't have been the last one. Robin quickly found himself face down to the dirt. No. Time passed. Minutes or hours, he wasn't sure. Then someone grabbed him from behind. Robin tried to turn and fight, but he couldn't find the strength. Easy, friend, the hoarse voice said. This is not over yet. Tuck. Thank you, Lord. Robin did his best to aid the old man in helping him to his feet. I saw you fall. A vision, Tuck said. Thank you, Robin said. He faltered in his steps. We will get you back to camp and rest, Tuck said, and tomorrow distribute the bounty. Still lightheaded, Robin said, we will. This war isn't over. The God of Israel will prevail over the God of Rome. And we're back after the credits. So this one's just a mini commercial, and if you're doing the listen and watch version on YouTube, I'm going to show it to the camera, and that is the collector's Axioman 24 karat gold plated coin. That's right, 24 karat high-end stuff. So on the one side here, we got Axioman in full color, beautiful gold, nice trim. On the other side, it's him in black and white. Jumping out at you, the coin itself is 3D, like in terms of it being stamped. One side's in color, one side's black and white, as said. And the best part is they come in these PVC pouches, which means that no human fingers have ever touched it. So they're perfectly mint in all aspects. So I'm offering this to you as podcast listeners. Okay, $25, shipping included, straight to your door. One-of-a-kind collector's coin. And guess what? We're running out of stock, so better hurry. Send me an email, apfuchs@gmail.com, or shoot me a note through Messenger or through the website or anywhere you can find me. But you better get on this because they're almost gone, and I don't really plan on making more. So now's your chance. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week for the final episode of Season 3.